I'm going to talk about e-bikes today and what successful e-bikers do when they're riding on Marco Island. So let's get into a few situations that I think illustrate my point, and then I'm going to talk to you about what I think is up and coming for e-bikes and e-modes of transportation on Marco Island and what we can do to make sure that everybody gets along. Here's an example of a pet situation. So I've got two dogs up here, and e-bikes make a noise, the motor, and you don't want to scare the dogs. Some dogs hate this, some dogs are very tolerant. We're going to go all the way to the right and pass slowly. Hello. A lot of dogs get freaked out, sort of like they do with the vacuum cleaner. So you don't want to zip past them because the bike makes that motorized noise, just a little bit of a hum, and it's enough to set some of them off, and some of them are okay with it. You're fine. Just pass it on the left. Thanks.
Happy Easter.
Happy Easter to you. Here's a good example coming up on the path around Mackel Park. A couple are walking. I'm going to use my bell first. Just pass it on your left. Thank you. Announce you're passing on the left, ring a bell. I do have a horn on my bike, but it's loud and obnoxious. Sounds like that, but that usually startles people. And the bell actually will startle people if you do it too close. So make sure you give it plenty of time, even if you don't think they'll hear it, because you can ring it an extra time or two. But have a bell and maybe a horn. I use horn for cars or people that have headphones in, they can't hear me. And other than that, a bell or a verbal gesture. A lot of times I just use both because I really don't want people jumping over to the side, especially the older people. You don't want to startle them. Not only do successful e-bikers on Marco keep their head on a swivel just for the obvious threats, but you really got to watch the driveways, and that's why speed is important. A lot of the driveways have hedges that come out to the shared use path. They can't see. You have people that drive that may not turn their head as well as they once did, and regardless of whose fault or who's responsible for what, it just doesn't really matter because you'll end up losing if you're the one on the bike. So be mindful of cars coming out of the driveways, either backing out or driving, straight through one of the circular driveways. And you get that a lot. You really have to pay attention to the driveways here. This is the Winterberry Bridge, and I'm getting off the bike and I'm walking across because it asks you to. There really is no bike lane here. They're getting ready to replace this bridge, and then they will have a shared use path going across it. But until then, now here comes some pedestrians, so I'm going to stop and let them go around me. Hi guys. Can you squeeze past? Thank you. Again, my bike, it's an e-bike, so it's a little bit bulky, a little wider than most. So just like we yield to pedestrians, I'm going to give them the common courtesy first. Here comes a couple of bikes. Now the shared use path is wide enough for bikes to pass each other, but my handlebars might be a little bit wider on my e-bike, so I'm going to go all the way to the right and just kind of ride the edge. Give them plenty of space. Hi. Hello.
Hi, how are you?
So plenty of room. Let's talk about speed. Currently I'm going 11.5 miles an hour. I think 10 to 12 is probably the sweet spot for e-bikes. It allows you to see cars coming out of the driveways. It also, is not so fast. Just the other night I was standing out. The shared use path goes through our front yard, and had some kids on e-bikes, and they were going at least 25 miles an hour. And I know the model of bikes that they had, when you pedal, will go up to 28 miles an hour. They were just about maxed out. Zipped right past us, couldn't have cared less. And that's the kind of activity on e-bikes that gives e-biking a bad name. So 10 to 12 miles an hour, really as fast as you need to go. Now, if you're on the shared use path going out to Goodland and there's nobody coming, you probably pretty much go as quickly as you want. But here, you just never know. Here we go. Go to the right side. Hello, hello. And you pass them like that when they're coming at you at 10 mile an hour, you're not scaring anybody. If I'm passing somebody that's going in the same direction I am, then I'll just ease past them maybe 2-3 miles an hour. Again, do the verbal warning and maybe a bell, and everybody's good. I think people find that courteous. Now I'm on West Winterberry and I'm coming up to Collier, and I'm gonna go north. And there's a lot of opportunities here to either be very courteous or make a lot of mistakes. So let me go right here. And we've got some bikes in front of us. They're carrying chairs, so probably not a good passing opportunity. E-bikers and traffic signals. Obey them, especially at the crosswalks. The people in Marco are not so good at the right on red thing, and generally when they have a red light, you have a green light to cross the crosswalk, and so that could just end in a bad situation. I've multiple times had my head on the swivel and had to stop as I was entering the road because the car was going right on red. I see a lot of e-bikers and they just shoot across because they think they've got the juice to outrun the car or make it there quicker, and that's just not a good strategy. So here's a perfect situation up here. I call this a choke point. You can see these people in front of me. Well, the sidewalk is only so big, so if there's people coming on this bridge towards me or going with me, I just stop. Same thing for other bikers, and a great example, here comes some bikes. Let's see what they do. And they're just gonna keep on riding. Thing is, the white line on their right is a ledge that goes right into the street, and that's 35 mile an hour traffic. Hi guys. Hi. Okay, it's clear for me, this is not a sidewalk that's wide enough. This is not a shared use path. But that ledge there to my left is probably 6 or 7 inches. And if you go off that, you're gonna tumble right into traffic. Let's see what they do with my bell. Thank you, pass it on your left. Thanks. I'm gonna slow down. Just pass it on your left, thank you.
Thank you.
Another choke point coming up, and that's the bridge, the Collier Bridge by the Esplanade. Now, the path on here is wide, but it has the railing and then the safety guards on one side. So if there's somebody coming up here, stop. If they're on a bike even, really kind of one-way traffic really single lane traffic is sort of the way to go here. It widens out a little bit up top, but if somebody's coming, and a lot of times there is, I'll just stop and sort of hold myself here on the bridge, watch the boats go by, and then take off. I want to talk about e-bike etiquette, and particularly here on Marco Island. Now, I understand that these are probably rules that everybody should follow, whether you're on an e-bike or a traditional bike, but e-bikes sort of get a bad rap, and there's a lot of discussion about maybe regulation or policies in place for e-bikes. I've heard at the city council where the Bike Paths Committee chair had mentioned a couple years ago, just in passing, had said, yeah, e-bikes at some point, we're gonna have to have that conversation. So when we do need to have that conversation, as an advocate of e-bikes, I wanna make sure that we're given as fair a shake as possible. That said, really the most mileage we're gonna get in any argument that may come up about e-bikes or scooters or just methods of transportation, and that is courtesy. If everybody was courteous to each other on the bike paths, then really there'd be zero issues. Now, let me talk about the bike paths. And I've had my helmet on, so I don't know what this looks like, but it doesn't really matter. So on the subject of shared use paths, I may call them bike paths in this discussion, but on Marco, you'll see on the forums, people say, oh, the bikes or the e-bikes, they need to get out into the road, or even bicycles in the road. And what a lot of people don't understand is that the shared use path, and you can see the signs on the path, and you can also go to the city's website, and you can see the policies for the shared use paths. And that is pedestrians have the right of way over everything, and then bicycles. The only thing that has, in my book, more of the right of way than anybody would be dogs and babies. How about that? But if you want to understand the official rules of the bike paths here, just you can look at the map, and the map, they update it every single year. This is the 2024 map, and what they'll show you on the website is that bikes and pedestrians and everything else have to coexist on the bike paths. Now in the state of Florida, an e-bike, I know it's got a motor, but according to the state legislature, it's considered a bicycle, so it has all the same privileges as riding a traditional bike. So you're not going to win that argument. You're not going to be able to get away from that. You're going to find e-bikes or anything on the shared use paths here. The biggest issue and the largest infraction that I see is the speed. I see the speeds on the path. The path goes right through my front yard, so I see it all day long, and I see people being very courteous, and then I see people that are abusing e-modes of transportation. I break down e-bike riders into sort of three categories. First, you have your retired people or your tourists, and they're just out for a leisurely ride. E-bikes get people out on bikes that they may not normally get out on, and then they'll go further and sort of tour the island more because it's easier on your body. My second category is going to be people that use e-bikes for primary modes of transportation. They may not have a car. You can tell they're going to or from work. They're carrying loads with them. I saw a guy the other day on a scooter with 3 large cases of water and himself on that scooter. And I know that scooter was working as hard as it probably wanted to work, but it was getting it done. I was impressed. But you've got that category as well. And they may go a little bit quicker because they've got someplace to be. And then after that, you've got kids. And kids like speed and they like excitement, and those are probably the largest offenders here on the island. If you go past the Marco Island Charter School, the high school, when it lets out, you'll see the e-bikes take off from there, and it's on after that. I see a lot of young people, and they have fishing poles mounted to the e-bike, and I can't think of a better way to spend an afternoon or a summer than taking your e-bike and going down to the water and fishing. However, along the way, they're doing 20, 25 miles an hour on the shared use paths, and that should be restricted. I think if people are more aware of how they ride e-bikes and e-modes of transportation and are just more courteous and focus on the safety factor so they don't get hurt or they don't hurt somebody else, I think that would go a long way so that eventually e-modes of transportation are just considered like anything else. You know, there could be an argument for, why do you need e-bikes on Marco Island anyway? And I'm guessing that once upon a time, the horse and buggies, you know, the horses themselves were thinking, what is that thing with four wheels? What do they call that, a car? Why would they possibly need those? We can do this just fine all by ourselves. So e-bikes are here to stay. E-modes of transportation are here to stay. And it makes sense in a lot of situations. Plus, it's just enjoyable. It's fun. And to do that on Marco Island, where there's you know, nothing but a 6x4 stretch of land in the middle of the Gulf, it's fantastic.